Hello and welcome to Pain, Do You Get It? This is a recording of the event, but the evaluation is still live and we'd love for you to fill it in, no matter where you live. Many thanks and enjoy.
Hello and welcome. We are live. Just want to thank you all for your engagement and your interest in tonight's webinar. My name is Ryan Meany. I am a physical activity for health officer with the Limerick Sports Partnership, and the Limerick Sports Partnership is delighted to welcome you to our first webinar, Move Well Education series webinar on chronic pain. We have teamed up with the excellent Flippin Pain UK campaign, who are going to take us through a very interesting and engaging talk this evening. So firstly, what I'd like to say is Limerick Sports Partnership is part of a network of sports partnerships around the country in Ireland, and we promote sport and physical activity in the community, and we provide many programs that people can partake in. One of these new areas we've moved into in recent times has been chronic health conditions, of which some are chronic pain and arthritis. So if you want to learn more or look at some programs that we offer, please join our mailing list on our website on limericksports.ie, and you'll be kept up to date with all the programs, events and activities that are coming in the next couple of weeks and months. So again, as mentioned, this is the first part of a Move Well education series. Tonight's event is on chronic pain. We've teamed up with the excellent Flippin Pain campaign, who will take us through the event this evening. And that is all for me. What I'll do now is I'll hand you over to Chris, who will be the MC for the evening and will introduce the speakers. I hope you have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the handover, Ryan, and good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Chris Shepherdson, and I'm a member of the Flippin Pain team. Flippin Pain is a public health campaign sharing a scientific understanding of persistent pain with people affected by it. This event in particular, thank you, supported by Limerick Sports Partnership. Tonight's webinar is being recorded. It'll be available to watch and to share with others via our YouTube channel within the next day or two. First of all, we're going to be hearing from my friend and colleague, Professor Cormac Ryan, one of Flippin Pain's community pain champions and Professor of Clinical Rehabilitation at Teesside University. This will be followed by a question and answer session where there'll be an opportunity to learn further from both the clinical perspective and the expertise of people who live with pain themselves and have in their own journey made good use of the information and guidance that we're going to be sharing with you this evening. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. You'll notice at the top of your screens the Q&A box on the screen. Please use this at any time throughout the presentation. Put your questions in there and we'll come to these at the end of Cormac's talk. Just a note on those questions, we can't answer any individual medical questions about you personally, so do try and make any questions you do pose as broad as possible. We can't see or hear you, so please relax and move around as much as you need to within the comfort of your own homes or environments. And finally, but importantly, you may have heard this before at previous Flippin Pain events, but it's definitely worth saying again, particularly if you're joining us and are indeed somebody who lives with pain. If you've ever been made to feel otherwise, we'd like to acknowledge that persistent pain is real. It's complex, it's often distressing, it can make us feel scared, angry, anxious, depressed, isolated, and ultimately not in control. And sadly, there's an awful lot of misinformation out there that can add to that feeling. So our aim tonight is to share the most accurate information there is, so you can begin to feel in control once again. What you hear tonight won't take your pain away immediately, but it may start you on the right path to reclaiming back your life and reclaiming you. So to begin with, I'm delighted to be able to welcome and introduce to you all my colleague and friend and wonderfully skilled guitarist and singer-songwriter, Professor Cormac Ryan.
Lovely. Hello, everyone. Thanks for that intro, Shep. Nice to see you all. Let me see if this is working correctly. Yes, it is. Okay, so as has already been said, my name is Cormac Ryan. I'm Professor of Clinical Rehabilitation at Teesside Uni. I'm also the Community Pain Champion for the Flippin Pain campaign. Just to briefly say, lady in the bath, your camera is still on and we can see you. Only kidding. All the cameras are off. We can't see anyone. Only joking. Okay, so Before I start, I always like to go through my conflicts of interest. So I'm a named inventor of a medical device for the treatment of phantom limb pain, but I'm not going to be talking about any of that information here. And then I'm also leased out by Teesside University to be the community pain champion for the Flippin Pain campaign. What that means is I don't get paid directly for my involvement in the campaign, but my university does. So with all of those conflicts of interest, I had hoped that right about now I'd be sunning myself in some Mediterranean port, but unfortunately the reality is not quite as rosy. So obviously I'm not from the UK. I'm originally from Ireland in Offaly, and many of you might recognise Clonmacnoise there on the banks of the Shannon, where I grew up. My brother's actually still a tour guide there in Clonmacnoise. Usually over here I tell the joke that if you do visit and you mention my name, my brother will let you in for free, but I'm not going to use that joke here because I probably bankrupt Bord Fáilte. So yeah, if you mention my name, he'll just say hello, but he won't let you in for free. Okay, so as an ex-University of Limerick graduate, it's a lovely honor to be back presenting to a sort of a Limerick and a wider sort of Munster community. So thanks so much for the opportunity to do it. Right, so pain is a huge problem in Ireland. It affects about 1 in 3 people, and it accounts for about 25% of the total disability in Ireland. It's a huge problem. So what have we been doing to try and tackle this problem? Well, we've been throwing the kitchen sink at it in terms of biomedical-based interventions. So over the past 30 years or so, we've seen a huge increase in scanning techniques like MRI scans. We've seen a huge increase in the prescription of opioid medications and other really strong drugs. And we've seen a huge increase in surgical approaches, such as surgery for back pain. However, despite this huge increase in surgical approaches and medicines and all these other biomedical interventions, we haven't really seen much of an improvement. If anything, the prevalence of persistent pain continues to increase, as does its associated disability. So the question is, why do we keep doing this? Why do we continue with an approach that's not really working all that well and is also not aligned with what the best evidence says we should be doing? The best evidence says we should be using active physical and psychological therapies, but we're not really doing it. So why is this? Well, one of the main reasons will be to do with how we all understand pain. How does the average person or the average man on the street understand persistent pain? When I asked Google to give me a picture of the average man on the street, this is the picture that Google gave me. I can't help but feel that Google has an unrealistic image of what the average man on the street might look like. But they could be in Limerick right now with the beautiful weather that we're having. But the average person believes that pain only occurs when you're injured. The greater the injury, the greater the pain will be. And persistent pain means that injury has not healed. Now, these all sound like sensible, logical ways of understanding pain, but actually they're all misconceptions. They're all factually incorrect. But understanding pain in this way can be a real barrier to good management and can lead us to use those biomedical based interventions. Now, over the past 70 years or so within the scientific community, we've learned a great deal about pain and how it works, but very little of that information has trickled through to the person on the street. And as such, these myths and misconceptions persist, and they act as barriers to good management. So we at the Flippin Pain campaign believe that knowledge is the key to success. If we can take this scientific information, put it into the hands of the people who need it the most, the person with pain, their friends, their relatives, their healthcare professionals, we can bust these myths, leading to better pain management for everyone. So we're trying to change the way that people think about, talk about, and treat persistent pain. And we're trying to do that by communicating our 6 key messages. The persistent pain is common and can affect anyone. Hurt does not always mean harm. Everything matters when it comes to pain. Medicines and surgeries are often not the answer. Understanding your pain can be key, and recovery is possible. So I'm going to tackle each of those in turn. First, let's start off with persistent pain is common and can affect anyone. So if you're standing in the queue at Tesco and you've got persistent pain and you look around, it's easy to think that you're the only one with it. And that's because, of course, it's invisible. All pain is absolutely real, but it's invisible. And thus, other people can't see it, and you can't see it in other people either. So you might look and think, why me? Why am I the only one? And feel quite isolated and alone. And this can be really problematic because feeling isolated and alone is actually really bad for your health, and it's bad for your pain. So knowing that actually you're not alone, that it's actually quite common, and 1 in 3 people in Ireland experience persistent pain. No, so if you look around at that queue, you'll see that 33% of that queue will also be going through what you were going through, even if you can't see it. And just knowing that other people are going through the same thing can help to reduce the sense of isolation and loneliness, and encourage people to reach out and talk about their pain. So very much, you're not alone. You're not the only one. And that's just that first key message is really, really important to communicate. Persistent pain is common, can affect anyone. So the second key message is that hurt does not always mean harm. So what do I mean by hurt does not always mean harm? Well, it's really nicely exemplified by this case study, which was published in the British Medical Journal in 1995. And it's a case study of a builder who jumped from one platform to another. And as he did so, a 6-inch nail went up through his boot. He was in absolute agony. He was rushed to accident and emergency, where they gave him some really strong painkillers like fentanyl, which is a really strong opioid, but it had no effect. They brought him into the operating room. They removed his boot. And what they found was, miraculously, and that's the term they use in the case study, miraculously, the nail had passed between his toes. So there wasn't a scratch on him whatsoever. Yet he was in terrible, terrible pain. It's a perfect example of hurt doesn't mean harm. You can have terrible, terrible pain with little or no injury. And the reverse is true. So this is another case study published in the journal Injury Prevention. Quick disclaimer, that's not the picture that's published in the case study. That's just something I got off Google, but it gets the point across. In this case study, a man came into accident and emergency complaining of a feeling of dizziness and some headaches. When they scanned him, what they found was a 12-centimeter knife was stuck in his head. Turns out the night before he had gotten a little tipsy and fallen over. When he woke up the following morning, he could find the handle of his favourite knife, but he couldn't find the blade. No prizes for guessing where the blade was. They removed the knife, and 2 days later he left in pretty good shape for a guy who had had a knife stuck in his head. But it's again a perfect example of hurt does not necessarily mean harm. There you had significant tissue injury with little or no pain at the time. Pain and injury are 2 separate things. That's a really key point to remember. They're 2 separate things. They sometimes hang out together, but not always. And with persistent pain, over time, they drift further and further apart, like old school friends. So that's our second key message. Hurt does not necessarily mean harm. Now, you're probably thinking, well, these are 2 examples that are extreme examples and don't really relate to me and are not sort of normal. But actually, this hurt does not mean harm phenomenon happens every day, and you will have experienced it yourself. I'm sure there will be times when you'll have come off the football pitch or the hurling pitch or just doing something really intense, and afterwards noticed that you're bleeding and gone, when did that happen? I have no recollection of when that cut occurred. Similarly, if you've ever woken up in the morning and looked at your leg and you've had a huge bruise on it and gone, where did that come from? I have no recollection of that happening. These are all examples of where we have tissue injury, but no pain at the time. Really, really showcasing that pain and injury are two very, very separate things. So how is this possible? How can you have terrible pain with no injury and terrible injury with no pain at times? Well, it's all to do with the third key message, which is that everything matters when it comes to pain. Pain is a biopsychosocial experience influenced by biological, psychological, and social things. Now, to communicate this point, I don't like to talk about pain initially. I like to talk about vision and how our visual system works and what we see, because everything we see is a biopsychosocial experience influenced by biological, psychological, and social things. So I'm going to start off with this illusion, and I'm going to ask Ryan to come back in for this bit. Hello again, Ryan.
Hi, Cormac.
Good man. Okay, lovely. Right. Can you tell me, Ryan, what color does this square here look, the bottom one?
The bottom one, in my expert opinion, I think looks kind of orangey to me.
Ideal. And what color does the top one look like?
Brown.
Ideal. So it doesn't look like they're the same color.
Definitely not, no.
Perfect. Right. Now, what color would you say this bottom square is now?
It looks brown now.
Excellent. And what color does this one look? The top one?
Also brown.
So they now appear to be the same color.
They do, yeah.
They do. Awesome. Excellent. Now, here's a question for you. Would you believe me that I'm not changing the color of that bottom square? The only thing I'm doing is popping this white sheet over it.
Okay, it looks entirely different.
Absolutely. Looks entirely different. Would you believe me if I told you that I don't change it?
I don't know, Cormac. Maybe are you changing it?
So I'm sensing you're skeptical.
Yeah, it looks entirely different. Yeah, it looks entirely different.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and prove to you that I'm not sort of hoodwinking you. This is genuine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it back to this view. Now, what I'd like you to do is, do you have like an A4 sheet or a bit of paper or a jotter or something that to hand?
Yeah, I can grab one there now.
Any audience member listening, please feel free to do the same thing. If you have a piece of paper to hand, please take it and then grab yourself a pencil or a pen. And what I want you to do is make a hole through that piece of paper, just the width of the pen. Just shove the pen through the paper to create a little window in it, just like that. Absolutely ideal. Ideal. So when you've got that, take back out the pen and place the little hole over that bottom square, that orange square. So all you can see is just the orange square. So go ahead, Ryan, pop it over your screen. We won't be able to see you. We'll just see the piece of paper. But pop it over your screen. And what color does the square appear to be once you put the sheet over it?
Both brown.
Both brown, absolutely. Hopefully the audience members at home will see the same thing. So it's not a trick. It's absolutely, I'm not changing the color of that square. All I'm doing is popping this white sheet over it. So how does that happen? So it's all to do with how the visual system works. Ryan, I'm going to get you to hang on there just for 2 minutes because I'm going to bring you in just for a couple more questions just at the end. So how does this work? Well, it's all to do with how our visual system works. Light reflects off images in the surrounding area, goes in through the lens of our eye and is projected onto the back of the eye called the retina, where it stimulates little receptors, which send the messages of light, convert them into electric energy and send them via the optic nerve to the part of the brain that deals with vision. Now, I want you to imagine that in there is a little girl called Sheila. Sheila is surrounded by millions of jigsaw puzzle pieces, and she uses those jigsaw puzzle pieces to build in real time an image of what's going on around you. That's what you see 100% of the time, all of the time. Everything you see is a creation of Sheila, a creation of your subconscious mind. That's what you see. It doesn't mean that what you're seeing is not there. It absolutely is there, but it's just created for you. It's a representation of that is created for you by your subconscious mind. Now, that representation, of course, is influenced by the light information that comes in, but it's also influenced by your previous experiences, your expectations, your beliefs, your attitudes. Everything matters when it comes to what you see. So we're going to take that new understanding and bring it back to the illusion. And this is where I'm going to get Ryan to come back in just one last time for me, just very, very briefly. Assuming he's still here and he hasn't gone off to enjoy the sunshine, which I appreciate, I could fully understand. Okay, Ryan, what does this look like over here? It's to the left of this, to the left of the cube, the darker area to the left of the cube. What does that look like?
A dark shadow.
A shadow. Absolutely. And if that was shadow, what would that suggest is coming from the other side of the cube?
The sunlight or light source.
Absolutely. Light. Perfect. Ryan, that's awesome. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so absolutely. It's that's the impression, the way it's drawn. It's meant to give us that impression. But actually, of course, there is no real shadow. There is no light. This is a 2D image. It's not a 3D image. But our subconscious, Sheila, she doesn't know that. She assumes that that's real shadow and real light. So when the light energy reflects off those two squares, now remembering they're in truth, in reality, externally, they're both the same color, both brown. So the same amount of light energy is reflecting off both squares, going in through our eyes and reaching our Sheilas. Sheila would usually say, same amount of light energy, they must both be the same color, both brown. That's the image I'm going to create. So that Cormac sees that. Then she goes, hang on, wait a second. That bottom square, that's in a shaded area, a darker area. So if I'm getting the same amount of light energy from that square, but it's in a darker area, it must be a brighter color than the other square. So she predicts that that bottom square is orange, and thus that's the image she immediately creates for me, and your equivalent will create the same for you. Now, as soon as we put that white sheet over it, Sheila no longer has to adjust her prediction for the shadow. And so she now predicts, well, they're both getting the same amount of light energy from both. So she predicts they're both the same color, both brown, and that's the image she creates for us 100% of the time, all of the time. But interestingly, even though we now know they're both the same color, both brown, as soon as we take the white sheet away, she immediately turns it back to being orange. In other words, we don't consciously control what we see. It is our subconscious which creates what we see 100% of the time, all of the time. So everything you see, and indeed taste, touch, smell, they're all creations of your subconscious mind. Now, I want you to start thinking about pain in the same way. I want you to start thinking about pain a little bit like our senses. So this is Assumpta. Assumpta is Sheila's first cousin on her mother's side. Assumpta is the part of the brain that deals with pain. And I like to depict her as Lady Justice with her blindfold and her weighing scales. When she receives danger messages from the body, we don't receive pain messages from the body. We don't have pain receptors. They don't exist. We have what they call danger receptors that send danger messages up to the brain. And when those messages reach the brain, subconsciously, Assumpta asks the question, how dangerous is this really? If on balance she believes the situation is dangerous, she'll want to draw your attention to it and get you to do something about it to protect you. And the best way she can do that is to produce the experience of pain. In contrast, if when those danger messages come up, Assumpta believes the situation is not dangerous, she'll not want to draw your attention to it. She'll not want you to do something about it because there's no need to protect you, and thus she won't produce the experience of pain. It's as easy and as difficult to get your head around as that. Now, what evidence do I have that Assumpta exists? Lots of studies. But my favorite one is this particular study, which I like to think was set up a little bit like a scene from James Bond's Goldfinger. In this study, there were 40 healthy participants. And what they did was they shone a laser onto the foot of these participants in 3 different areas. When they shone the laser onto area 1, all the scientists in the room went, yep, that's perfectly fine. That's nice and safe. We can use that for the rest of the study. They then shone the laser onto area 2. And all the scientists in the room went, ooh, no. The skin there is very thin. It could cause a burn. We can't use that for the rest of the study. It's too dangerous. They then shone the laser onto area 3. And all the scientists in the room went, we're not sure about this. We think it's safe enough, but we're a little bit worried. So what we're going to do is we're going to use it for the rest of the study, but we're going to monitor it very, very closely. Then for the next hour, they delivered 120 stimuli, 60 to area 1, the low threat area, and 60 to area 3, the high threat area. Each time they asked the participants to say whether they experienced pain or not, and if they did experience pain, to say how much pain did they experience. So what did they find? What they found was when the laser was shone onto the low threat area, area 1, participants were less likely to report the stimulus as painful as compared to when they stimulated area 3, the high threat area. Furthermore, when they did experience pain in both areas, they reported lower levels of pain in the low threat area, area 1. Now here's the key piece of information. Both areas were exactly the same. Both areas had very identical skin thickness. Both were completely safe. The only difference was the person's belief that one set of stimuli were safe and one set of stimuli were dangerous. And that's really, really important. Have a think about what that means for a moment. What it means is how we think about a certain stimulus or a certain activity in terms of how dangerous or safe we think it is can actually influence the amount of pain we experience, and even if whether we experience pain or at all. And that's a really, really powerful thing. What that tells us is how we think about things can actually influence our pain experience. And it's a really exciting thing because we can use that to help us to manage our pain better. So I'm going to try and biologize this a little bit. Imagine you're hanging up a painting on the wall. Instead of hitting the nail, you hit your thumb. This causes a danger message to be sent from your thumb all the way to your spinal cord saying danger in your thumb. Remember, it doesn't send pain messages. There are no pain receptors, but it sends a danger message and completely unconscious. You're totally unaware of it. That danger message is then relayed at the spinal cord up to your subconscious brain, and the relay station transmits messages using little chemicals called neurotransmitters. When that message reaches your subconscious brain, when it reaches Assumpta asks the question, how dangerous is this really? And this is where she begins to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. She goes, right, well, Cormac's doing DIY. He always injures himself when he's doing DIY. He's got lots of danger messages coming from his left hand, and he's got a hammer in his right hand. He's probably just hit that thumb, and he's in backswing. He's probably going to hit it again. We need to step in and do something about this. And the best way we can do that, let's produce the experience of pain in that thumb, and that's going to stop him in his tracks. And it's at that point when Assumpta, your unconscious brain, produces the experience of pain that you handsome devil, you become aware of the problem and you do something about it. That might be that you shout, you swear, you jump up and down, you go to your GP, whatever, but it stops you from continuing to hammer your thumb. It steps in to protect you. Okay, now Assumpta's not finished. If on balance she believes the situation is more dangerous than the amount of danger messages coming up would suggest, she can send out excitatory messages, which actually act as a positive feedback loop and increase the amount of danger messages coming up. If she receives even more danger messages, she's likely to believe the situation is more dangerous, therefore more need to draw your attention to it and get you to do something about it, therefore more need to produce the experience of pain. In contrast, if when she receives those danger messages, she believes the situation is not as dangerous as the amount of danger messages coming up would suggest, she can send down inhibitory messages, which act as a negative feedback loop and actually reduce the amount of danger messages coming up. If she receives fewer danger messages, she's likely to believe the situation is less dangerous, therefore less need to draw your attention to it and get you to do something about it, therefore less need to produce pain. So she has enormous control over that system in the short term. Now that's in the very, very short term or acute pain. But what about long term or persistent pain, which is what we're really here to talk about? Pain that carries on for many, many months. Well, in the situations like these, the system becomes slightly overloaded or supercharged. It wants to send lots of danger messages, but the system can't cope. It's a little bit like the post office at Christmas time. Just can't cope with all the messages, etc., that need to be sent. So what does An Post do? It recruits more postmen and they work longer hours over the Christmas period. Our sort of pain system does something very, very similar. Chemical changes happen which make it send danger messages much, much better. It gets to be so good that actually it starts sending them even when the messages, even when stimuli are safe. So gentle touch or simple movements like standing up or sitting down can be interpreted as dangerous and end up sending danger messages. And what's more, these chemical changes that happen can spill over into neighboring pathways. It's a little bit like if your house went on fire, you might call your neighbors and ask them to grab a bucket and help you to put it out to protect your house. In a similar way, your pain system asks for neighboring pathways to try and protect the area. And when that happens, this sort of spilling over into neighboring areas means that the experience of pain changes. And often people will say things like, well, if the pain began in my right knee, but now it's in my left knee as well. Or the pain began in my back, but now it's down my legs as well. Or they might say that it started in one small area, but now it's over a much, much bigger area. So the pain appears to move or get bigger. All of these are suggestive of a sensitized alarm system that's become sort of supercharged. It's become overprotective. And these changes can be maintained or can stay long after normal tissue healing occurs. So way after you would have expected the tissues to have healed, the pain can continue. Now, how it can be tricky to get to understand this idea or this concept, but the best way I've found to communicate it is to think about persistent pain a little bit like a car alarm, okay? To indicate that point that pain is not a marker of damage, but rather it's a marker of perceived threat. It's not so much due to tissue damage, but increased sensitivity of our body's natural alarm system. And the purpose of it is to protect you or keep you safe. So there's a story I tend to tell which tries to communicate this point. So imagine you've got a brand new car. It's your pride and joy. You drive it to work, you park it, you go up your 4 flights of stairs and you start typing away. Meanwhile, a burglar looks out from behind some bushes, says, I'm going to steal that car radio. He runs over, breaks the window, grabs the car radio, runs off down the street. 2 minutes later, car alarm goes off. You jump up, you look out your window, you shout, oi, but he's long gone. You go down your 4 flights of stairs, you call the Gardaí, you call the AA. Gardaí come and take a statement. The AA guy comes, he replaces your window, replaces your car radio, then he says, right, I'm going to give you a little tip. Got to turn up the sensitivity of your alarm system. Now, the next time someone messes with your car, they're going to get a rude awakening. You say, thanks very much. He drives off. You go back up your 4 flights of stairs and you start typing away. 2 minutes later, same burglar looks out from behind the same bushes and says, I'm going to have that car radio as well. Pops over, breaks the window. He doesn't break, sorry. He pops over, he touches the car. As soon as he touches the car alarm goes off. He hasn't broken anything. He's just touched it. The car alarm goes off. You hear it, you jump up, you look out your window, you shout, oi, you see him. He sees that you see him. He runs off, he's spooked. You run down and you find your car is in perfect condition and you thank your lucky stars for that AA guy for turning up the sensitivity. What an absolute star. You turn off the alarm, but you leave the sensitivity right up because it's doing such a good job keeping your car safe. Go back up your 4 flights of stairs and you start typing away. 2 minutes later, car alarm goes off again. You jump up, you look out your window and you see this elderly couple were just walking past your car and they just glanced off your car ever so slightly. Your car was in no danger, but it was enough to set off the alarm, and the alarm sounds just like it did when the window was broken. You go down your 4 flights of stairs, you turn off the alarm, but you leave the sensitivity right up because it's doing such a good job keeping your car safe. You go back up your 4 flights of stairs and you start typing away. 2 minutes later, car alarm goes off again. You jump up, you look out, you see this huge pigeon sitting on your car. You go down your 4 flights of stairs, you shoo him away, you turn off the alarm, but you leave the sensitivity right up because it's doing such a good job keeping your car safe. Go back up your 4 flights of stairs, you start typing away. 2 minutes later, car alarm goes off again. The problem is no longer the burglar or the broken window or the stolen car radio. The problem is this sensitized alarm system. And whilst it's doing a brilliant job keeping your car safe, it's stopping you from doing all the things that you need to get on with. Persistent pain works in a similar way. The pain stops you from doing anything, even remotely dangerous, that might injure your body. So it works brilliantly in that way. However, it's so sore that even doing non-dangerous, normal, everyday activities like walking down the field or going down to the shops is painful and it's difficult to do. Okay? So hopefully, any of you who do have pain on the sort of in this session will be able to kind of relate to that, and that will help to kind of understand what we're talking about here. The idea that persistent pain is about this sensitized, overprotective alarm system. The pain is 100% real, absolutely real, just like the alarm you can hear is absolutely real, but the car is safe. And in the case of persistent pain, the tissues are safe. So, how we talk about it can influence that pain. Positive, accurate information can actually reduce the sensitivity of the alarm system, whereas negative, inaccurate information can make it more sensitive. For example, when we scan people with back pain, we actually statistically increase the risk of them having a poor outcome. I'm going to say that again. When we scan people with back pain, we statistically increase the risk of them having a poor outcome. Now, why do we think that might be the case? Well, have a think about it for a moment. When we go and get to, let's say, a GP, say you're a 50-year-old guy, say you've got some back pain, GP takes a scan, comes back and says, you've got disc degeneration. Now, what does disc degeneration sound like to you? Does it sound safe or does it sound dangerous? For me, it absolutely sounds dangerous. It makes me think of things like a crumbling spine, bone on bone, wear and tear, degenerative, not going to get better. So that would really scare me. And if it scares me, it's going to scare Assumpta as well. My subconscious will also be worried about that. What's Assumpta going to do to try and protect me? The only thing she can do, which is to produce the experience of even more pain to keep me even more safe. So it can have a negative effect. Now, what we don't tell people as healthcare professionals is the more complete story. And that's shown on this table here. This table here, for the different age categories from 20 all the way up to 80, shows the different scan findings you might get, such as disc degeneration for those different age categories. But importantly, this is in people who have no back pain whatsoever. This data here is from completely healthy individuals. So think about what that means for a second. If we look at that middle column, 80%, 8 out of 10 people with no back pain whatsoever have disc degeneration on a scan. Now, what that tells us is that these changes are not necessarily pathological. They're not necessarily dangerous. They're just normal age-related changes. But we as healthcare professionals have been adding up 2 and 2 and getting 5, getting the wrong answer. We've been scanning people with back pain, finding disc degeneration and telling them that's the problem. When actually, if we scanned people without any back pain, we'd also be finding disc degeneration. But we don't know that because it's very rare that you actually do scan people who don't have any back pain. So we've been making the wrong assumptions based on the wrong information. When you actually tell people the full story, when you explain to them that these changes are normal age-related changes, you actually take away the negative effect of the scan. So it's not so much the scan itself, it's the negative information we give with it. There's a really good story of a colleague of mine who, when he went to have a scan, he was told his spine was like a digestive biscuit. They couldn't even use a robust biscuit like a hobnob, something with a bit of steel behind it. Poor old Pete, which was his name, he must have been avoiding cups of tea in case his spine just dissolved. It was a perfect example of negative, inaccurate information, which had a negative impact on his pain. So coming back to this idea of everything matters when it comes to pain, essentially it's weighing up danger and safety. Anything that suggests danger increases the sensitivity of the alarm system. Anything that suggests safety reduces the sensitivity of the alarm system. So stress, for example, can increase the sensitivity of the alarm system. Low mood can increase the sensitivity of the alarm system. Friends and family being worried about what's causing the pain, that can increase the sensitivity of the alarm system. Financial insecurity, so feeling financially insecure can actually increase the sensitivity of your pain alarm, which, you know, shows that it doesn't even have to be specific to that bodily area. General danger information can increase the sensitivity of the alarm system. Pain-related worry about what might be causing the pain, increases the sensitivity of the alarm system. Poor diet, so lifestyle issues can also influence it. Poor diet, lack of sleep, low levels of physical activity, all of these things can increase the sensitivity of the alarm system. And indeed, negative past experiences. All of these things can increase the sensitivity of the alarm system. But if we know that, then we can use that information to begin to try and manage it a bit better. What if we lined up all the things we know influence or can influence the experience of pain? Now, some of those things we can change, like our genetics, for example, or indeed previous life events. But other things we can begin to change. So we could address things like stress and anxiety through things like mindfulness, meditation, relaxation activities. Diet and exercise, we could get more fruit and veg in our diet. Poor sleep, we could use sleep hygiene tactics, try and improve our sleep. We could reach out to networks that we perhaps had disengaged from to try and increase our social support and our social networks. And then we could try and increase our activity levels just a little bit. Simple things like getting off the bus one stop early. All of these things, when you join them up together, can have a cumulative effect and begin to reduce the sensitivity of that alarm system. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual thing, but they can make a big difference. Okay, so I'm now moving on to our fourth key message. We've got 4, 5, and 6 key messages left, but they're much, much shorter. The fourth one is medicines and surgeries are often not the answer. So often when we think about this, I like to think about this in terms of fire. So fire is a really noxious, awful thing. You don't care what's causing it, you just want it to go out. But actually understanding what's causing it can help you to choose the right fire extinguisher. So if you put, for example, water on an electrical fire, it might not just not put out the fire, it might make the fire worse. Now, pain, it's a bit like fire. It's noxious, it's awful. You just want the pain to go away. You don't really care what's causing it, but actually knowing what the cause is can help you to choose the right interventions. Now, if we look at opioids, for acute pain, short-term pain, they can be really, really useful. So if you've just had a surgery or if you've literally just got hit by a bus, then opioids can be really, really helpful for a few days or a few weeks. However, for persistent long-term pain, pain that's been there for many, many months, the biology is different, the context is different, and these medications simply don't work as well. And however, the side effects still continue. And that's why we try and sort of move away from these opioids, because whilst they're great in the short term, the long term, they really, the science would say they don't help at all, and they do still come with so many side effects. Right, on to our fifth and sixth key message, that understanding your pain can be key and recovery is possible. So this is some data that's been provided to me by a colleague in Australia called Professor Lorimer Mosley, and this is data from a clinic that he's involved in, where all the patients come in, they receive an education a bit like this over a longer period of time, as well as a smorgasbord of active physical and psychological therapies, evidence-based therapies. On average, people have pain for over 6 years, and they've got pain at about 5 out of 10. And they have a range of different pain conditions, from back pain to neck pain and everything in between. What they've found is that for patients who flipped their understanding away from the old hurt means harm understanding towards a more everything matters when it comes to pain understanding, after about a month, their pain hadn't changed, but after 6 months, it had begun to reduce, and after a year, it had improved quite considerably. In contrast, those who maintained a very hurt means harm understanding, their pain levels remained relatively static throughout. What this tells us is two things. First, recovery is possible. If recovery wasn't possible, that orange group simply wouldn't exist. People can improve, people can change. Now, when we talk about recovery is possible, we mean really that recovery can mean different things to different people. For some people, it's a reduction in their pain. For others, it's just feeling better despite their pain. For others, it's being able to go back to work or do some of their usual things despite their pain. But in this case, we're talking about a reduction in pain. The second thing is that understanding your pain can be key. I'm not saying it is key, because in this trial, we don't know for certain whether people improved because they changed their understanding. We can assume that, but we don't know for certain. However, there is a growing body of clinical trials to suggest that actually flipping your understanding can make a real difference in the long term to your pain and disability. But as I said, recovery means different things to different people. Okay, so very quick recap. When we started this, we talked about that most people believe that pain only occurs when you're injured. The greater the injury, the greater the pain will be, and persistent pain means that injury is not healed. And I said that these were factually incorrect, that they were misconceptions. Hopefully, when you look at these statements, you'll now look at them slightly different, and you'll understand why they are misconceptions, and think about them differently. And just a reminder of our 6 key messages: that persistent pain is common and can affect anyone. Hurt does not always mean harm. Everything matters when it comes to pain. Medicines and surgeries are often not the answer. Understanding your pain can be key, and recovery is possible. There are some references if you have a burning desire to go and check them out. And just want to finish by thanking Pain Revolution in Australia, who are a sister group of Flippin Pain, who have been really generous with all their materials and all their support, and we're really grateful to them. If you want to know more, check out the website. There's lots of materials on that. Yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Cormac. There we go. Just like that, slick technology. Yeah, that was brilliant, Cormac. And I've heard that presentation a few times, as you know, but each time I hear it, I gain something new from it, a new sort of thought enters my head, or a new little direction that my mind travels. Or this is another facet that I could think of and consider a little bit more deeply. That's Cormac's talk wrapped up. So before we head into our panel discussion, just a reminder, I can see some questions firing in already, but get that Q&A box open on your Teams program. Get your questions lined up if you want to pose them to our panel. I'm going to come to each of our panelists individually and allow them to introduce themselves to you all as well. So again, magic of technology, the Brady Bunch just pops up in front of the screen there. First person I'm going to come to, delighted to introduce you to a lady who's been one of my best educators in understanding the lived experience perspective of persistent pain. And that's a friend of mine, Nikki Jones. Nikki, it's lovely to have an opportunity to work with you again. Would you like to say hi and just tell us a little bit about your story, please?
Hi, thanks, Shep. Hi, everybody. My name's Nikki Jones. So I had severe pain for, I think it started about 22 years ago. And I was in very serious pain for a lot of time. But when I actually flipped my understanding of pain, it actually allowed me to recover. Obviously, recovery means different things to different people, and my life's not the same as it used to be, but I live in a very different way now. I manage my pain in a way that means I'm largely pain-free. And it was this understanding that gave me the why to live in a better way. So that's why I'm here. I've also had a lot of experience of the drugs and the surgeries. I've got a motor cortex stimulator, had lots of surgery, which, didn't really help much, but you do the best you can. And the getting off the opioids was a gnarly experience, I have to say. So I've got experience in various different ways. And I would say life and pain is very complex and everybody's doing their best. And that's what I believe. So
yeah,
let's see the rest of you.
Yeah, and it's not just your expertise, but you come with a really compassionate approach as well, which has been a big part of my learning as well. So yeah, thanks, Nikki, and nice to have you. Next, I'm going to come to you, Martina, if you want to take the mic.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. Martina Phelan is my name. I am the chair of Chronic Pain Ireland, national organisation for people with chronic pain. I have had pain for most of my life, over 40 years. And similar to Nikki, when I started changing my mindset, or flipping my mindset on the pain, it allowed me to, I suppose, recover would be the word, really, or regain some of my life. And one of those things that I have been able to do in recent years is actually return to UL as a student to do a BA in sociology. And I'm actually going into 4th year now. So I am very proud of myself for being able to do that. I won't say it's been easy with the pain, but it has been doable. Like Nikki, I'm on a lot of medication that all helps manage it. So I do that, and I'm with Chronic Pain Ireland. So yeah, recovery is most definitely possible.
Yeah, and we'll be talking a bit about Chronic Pain Ireland as we conclude today, so people can get familiar with that organisation and everything that they offer as well. A little reminder, if you've got any burning questions, just at the top of your screens, or if you're watching on a mobile phone, just a little tap of your screen will reveal a Q&A button, and you can pop your questions in there to the panel. Next, I'm going to ask Karen McCreesh to introduce herself and tell us a bit about how you made it on the panel, please.
Good evening. Good evening, Chris. My name is Karen McCreesh, and I'm a professor at the University of Limerick. I'm a physiotherapist, just like Cormac. And as a clinical physiotherapist, I had some expertise in working with people who live with chronic pain. But more recently, my role has been researching chronic pain and understanding how we can support people to live better quality of life with chronic pain. And I am currently engaged in a project with Chronic Pain Ireland and with Limerick Sports Partnership here in Limerick, where we've been working closely with people who live with chronic pain to help them exercise in their community. So we've had a lot of learning over the last year about the real world experience, I suppose, of people living in this local area here who have pain and who are trying to get back into a more physically active stage of their life. So looking forward to answering any questions related to those things.
Fab, and that segues perfectly into our final panelist, Ryan, who we met briefly at the start, but just a reminder of your background and what you can bring to the discussion, Ryan.
Thanks, Chris. So I suppose, look, my perspective is from the physical activity side of the house. We are involved in a pilot project in Limerick called Physical Activity for Health, as mentioned at the beginning. And one of those areas of work is to promote and improve pathways for people living with chronic health conditions to engage in community-based physical activity. So by engaging in physical activity keeps us happier and healthier for longer, you know, as Cormac kind of alluded to in his conversations. And something that's been a really good learning for us in the sports partnership was some of the chronic pain programs that we were running for chronic pain and arthritis. And what we found was that they're probably one of the most popular ones that we run, which shows that there's a huge demand for people in the community looking for something to, I suppose, try every outlet to try and deal with chronic pain. And I suppose something that we've seen is, you know, for example, we were on a program that is, it's an adapted aqua aerobic style program, Aqua Move we call it. So it's delivered in a hydrotherapy pool, so you get the therapeutic benefits of that. But in reality, what we were seeing was the people that were engaging in these programs were new individuals to the sports partnership. They weren't participants who had traditionally engaged in our regular aqua aerobic programs, so programs that we run day to day throughout the year that are really, really popular. The people that were engaging in these new programs were new cohorts of people. So it was a huge learning for us seeing that, you know, these specific tailored programs, they give people a tribe, for want of a better word, a community, you know, people with like-minded experiences, people who understand what they're going through and, you know, can have the same thoughts, feelings, concerns as one another, but also can do that in an active environment, you know, where things might be a bit adapted and can be done at a different pace. But still, they're all making that positive health choice. They're getting out, they're being active, but they're doing it with people who I suppose they feel comfortable with. So it's something that was really a big learning for us here in Limerick, and it's something that we're really, really trying to harness and focus in on with the research that Karen and Martine are involved with. It's something that is really kind of growing legs, you know, and it's something that we're really passionate about here in Limerick and want to continue to deliver on going forward.
Yeah, no, what again, a brilliant initiative that it is as well, in making a difference to clearly the lives of many. That idea of tribe and the way you described it, you know, such a powerful sort of part of what makes it what it is. Questions coming through thick and fast now, and I'm going to begin with this one that's been brought to my attention. I think I'm going to begin putting this one to you, Cormac, as it links in with your presentation. Then maybe bring in a bit of Karen's perspective, and if any of the other panel want to add to the response, please do so in an orderly fashion. Cormac, the question: if I have confirmed disc degeneration in my back and previous spinal surgery that didn't help, what sort of stuff could help me? That's from an anonymous.
Cheers, Shep. I'm not going to talk too long because I say people are sick of listening to me. So I'm going to kind of be brief. What I'd say is, first of all, learn as much as you can about understanding pain. Go to really reputable sites. Flippin Pain is a really reputable site, but there are other ones. Live Well with Pain. Go to Chronic Pain Ireland. Check out their resources. That's where you'll get really good information about what pain is and how it works. Then compare that understanding to the understanding maybe that led you into that surgical approach. That's a very biomedical approach. And then think about perhaps how that's worked out and whether it's had the results that you had hoped for. And your question suggests that maybe it hasn't, which suggests that maybe that biomedical approach wasn't the optimal or the best way for you. And maybe there's a different way. And I think that different way are those active physical and psychological therapies, but they're no good if they don't make sense to you. If you don't think, they're really worth embracing. So, accessing the services that Ryan's talked about, they're a really important step. But I think you have to go into it with a heart of knowing that this is the right thing to do. So getting that understanding first, I think, is really important. So, Karen, over to you.
Thanks, Cormac. I think that's really a great place to start, because shifting your understanding is the thing that's going to help you feel that you're more confident or more trusting in yourself to take a different approach than you've had before now. I think it's important to remember in Cormac's presentation that lots and lots of people have degenerative disc pictures on their images, and you may still have that obviously following on from your surgery, but it doesn't mean that you haven't got the possibility of getting recovery and improving how things are for you. One size does not fit all when it comes to pain. I think that's really important to understand. And depending on where you are in your skills for physical activity or for lifestyle change or healthy lifestyles, you may need support to decide or find out what works well for you. So it might be a bit of a cop-out to say there isn't a recipe, but working one-on-one, possibly with your GP, with a physiotherapist, with some kind of a health coach who can talk you through the kind of things that might work for you. Because if you go with the approach of saying, listen, I've had X, Y, and Z, and now I want to know what I can do for myself, then working with the right healthcare professional, you will get that support to get on the right road, whether that's exercise, whether that's sleep, whether that's stress, whether that's meaningful other activities in your life that are going to help to support you. So probably getting a little bit of help would be a good idea, and then telling them, well, what I want help with is to help improve my own self-management skills. They'll be likely then to come on board and support you. Just to say, in terms of exercise, there is no magic exercise. So people will often ask, what is the exercise for backs, and what is the exercise for hips, and what is the exercise for shoulders? And the best exercise is the one that you're going to do. As Ryan said, the programs run by Limerick Sports Partnership, the water-based program has been hugely successful, but other people say, no, water's not for me. The chair yoga, the Pilates, the walking in the park, you've got to do what works for you. Other people don't enjoy being in a group exercise environment and much prefer to meet up with a friend or to set their own goals through an app like MyFitnessPal, for example. So knowing yourself is what's important in terms of exercise, and ultimately the best exercise is the one that you're going to enjoy, that's going to be affordable for you, and that, as I said, you're going to commit to doing on a regular basis.
No, that's fab. And Karen, I think within your answer there, you stumbled on a really important point, and I might bring Nikki in to sort of complement this, but finding the right people to work with, and you described a coach there as well. And one of the things I've heard on repeat in my work as a clinician in this field is that first important step is when you share your story, you need to with anyone that you're looking to work with to make sure that story feels heard and listened to, and your experience is validated, and even just this little sort of seed or this chink of belief, this might help. I don't know how it's going to help. I'm approaching with a bit of an open mind, with optimism. Nikki, would you be able to sort of bring in some complementary advice with regards to what difference a good coach makes?
Yeah, a good coach makes a massive difference. But anybody who listens to you, as you said, and makes you feel heard is fundamental. And obviously, I work as a coach now, but back in I never actually saw a pain coach myself, but I did see a rehab consultant who worked in a very coaching way, and it made a very big difference. I felt understood, and it was the first time that it really made me feel that I wasn't broken, but that I was in control. And it's that changing you're sort of, instead of wanting someone else to fix you, nobody else is ever going to fix you. You're not actually broken. It's starting to accept that and learn that you're in control of your life. And while you can work with people, you're the one in the driving seat. And that's part of this understanding. But I'm seeing health coaches and pain coaches coming in, and I think they're a hugely valuable resource. They do need to stay in their lane. We you know, as healthcare professionals, you know, obviously coaches are a different beast, and they're not sort of diagnosing and they're not medically trained, but coaches tend to look forward, and it's not about what we know, it's about asking the right questions to make sure that your client, that the person sitting with you, finds their way. As everybody's alluded to, pain is hugely complex, it's hugely individual, and it's finding what works for that person, and only they can find that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. Moving on to another question, and again, this has got a broad scope for answers, really, and I'm sure each and every one of you are going to have your own sort of personal favorites and recommendations here. Are there any specific apps or books you would recommend? I've had nerve and back pain for 11 years, very poor quality of life. That's from Anonymous as well. Martina, I'm going to come to you first, given your Chronic Pain Ireland background. If you want to start with that question, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, with Chronic Pain Ireland, we focus on self-management approaches. And to do that, we run 6-week programs. And every week we cover one topic in relation to managing the pain. So things like pacing, figuring out how much you can do without causing yourself pain, better sleep, diet. And it's not instead of the medical approach, it's in addition to your existing healthcare, just to make that absolutely clear. And again, as Ryan, or Cormac rather, and Karen have said, there's no one quick fix for everybody. There's no one fits all. And in these courses, we take a general approach to everybody, and not everything is going to work for everybody. We have to account for that as well. And one of the other services that we offer then is mental health care services. So we have a counselling service that runs where you can have one-to-one sessions, or you can join a group session once a month. And those, they definitely help. I've gone through them myself. I've done them myself, and I advocate for them 100%.
Oh, fantastic! It is. It's a smorgasbord of menu choices, and again, it's about that sort of, what do I need right now? And the more you know and understand your own circumstances, which aspects of this biopsychosocial picture do I need to target? Am I in a position to target as well? And yeah, Chronic Pain Ireland, a really good starting point for such resources. Would anybody else like to come in? Again, I'm looking at the voice of lived experience here. Yeah, Nikki, please share some examples of what's worked and been helpful for you.
Most people know an app was the vehicle of my recovery. I used the Curable app, and it was transformative for me and fairly fast. Now, looking back, the app was the vehicle, the understanding, being exposed to this new science of pain and reducing my fear of pain, and understanding why I needed to do the things that I personally need to do to keep myself well, was sort of the fundamentals of that. So there are really good apps out there. There are an increasing number out there, and I've recently seen quite a few more. And it's, you know, somebody said smorgasbord. Yeah, there's a lot out there, and there's ones that are going to suit different people for different who need different things. Quite a few of them don't seem to, at the moment, to have what I would think is really important, which is the more sort of psychological support and the mindfulness and the, you know, just a slightly more holistic sort of point of view. So I would think that was very important. But there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of it that is free as well. And increasingly, the NHS, I'm going to call them trusts because I'm still in Wales and that's what they are here, but they are starting to use these apps and, you know, deliver them to people, especially people on waiting lists and stuff like that. So I would always encourage people to have a go, especially if it's free. What have you got to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think anything that's perhaps a little bit new or novel or unfamiliar, if it's being presented to you from a trusted evidence-based source, these things are often a bit of a shot at an open goal. I'll take a hit with this. The worst that can happen is very little. The best that could happen is it could be life-changing, such as your example, but typically it's not going to make my situation much worse. Yeah, no, fabulous. There's a few questions that have been bundled together here that kind of all sort of carry one and the same answer, I believe. I'll ask all three as a package. And again, perhaps Karen and Ryan, you might want to come in and take these ones up. First one is, what exercises are recommended for a person with chronic back pain, specifically S1 root nerve pain? The second, what is the best exercise for someone with pain, for someone who is just getting started? So someone very much at this beginning of their understanding their relationship with movement in association with pain. And the third, I've had chronic back pain for 15 years plus. I go to the gym, Pilates, mature movers. How can I tell if these are right for me? Sitting is painful, so I do try and keep moving. Ryan, would you like to maybe take that one up first, and then Karen can give Devil on the detail?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And look, I suppose I come at this from the physical activity perspective, and you know, while we're here talking about flipping pain and our understanding of pain, sometimes we probably also need to, in the same vein, flip our understanding of exercise. And reason I keep talking about physical activity is the word exercise itself is a very loaded term. And I'm very ironically sitting here from the Limerick Sports Partnership as well, which is also quite loaded. Sports and exercise can be seen differently to different people. So exercise to some people means you need to be running around the local GA pitch and be absolutely keeled over, out of breath after doing 10 laps. That's exercise to some people. Whereas when we flip that and we try thinking about exercise as physical activity, you know, moving more often in our day-to-day lives, it can seem quite novel and you know, quite a small approach. But if you think about your life and over the course of your life, over your weeks, over your months, over your years, if you're changing something very, very small, it has a massive cumulative effect throughout the year that gets you into a zone where your physical activity levels are, that you're in a zone then where you might be feeling a bit better, that you might look at the local leisure centre and see what offerings are down there. Or you might link in with the sports partnership and see what chronic pain programs are on offer. So I suppose what I'm trying to get at there is the guys, Cormac and Karen, are probably best placed on this, but we've kind of touched on that there is no one stop shop exercise that will solve everything, you know, but it's probably that flipping the understanding of exercise, understanding that being more physically active in our day-to-day life is a really positive health choice. It's something that should be encouraged. It's something that should be part of your day-to-day routine that will get you in a zone where you're feeling better, you know, where you might look at the next option and then the next option after that. So it starts quite small. As I said, it's quite novel, but it's the accumulation. It's building blocks, starting small, building. And in a year's time, if you continue that and look back, you see, Jesus, look how far I've come, you know? So hopefully that's a very broad answer on those questions.
Yeah, and a great answer as well. It springs to mind an analogy I heard about, and it was coffee beans in a jar. And a small amount each day, place a coffee bean in the jar, and you look after one day, it doesn't look like much, but after 3 weeks, you've got a decent chunk of change in there. And after 3 months or even a year, you're onto a few jars, and it's that cumulative effect that sort of happens without us realizing sometimes. Karen, to add more specifically perhaps to a couple of those questions.
I think there's a specific skill needed. I think Ryan's hit the nail on the head in terms of flipping your idea of what exercise is, so I won't go there again. But I think Martina highlighted the importance of pacing there earlier, and I think particularly for the person who's saying, I'm just getting started, or what's the best exercise, the skill of pacing is one key one to have under your belt in order to develop, the ability to manage your own exercise program. Ideally, doing it with the support of a professional is ideal. But if you don't have that, having what we call a time contingent way of deciding how to do your exercise rather than waiting to get pain or doing a certain amount, with always thinking about when is it going to start to hurt. So using a timed amount of physical activity. So choosing whatever's good for you, whether it be swimming, walking, dancing around the kitchen, but knowing I can do 4 minutes of that, or I can do 12 minutes of that, or I can do 20 minutes of that. And I know I can do that without having a flare up on a good day, on an average day for me. Being able to determine that is really how you then pace into the getting started in an exercise program. So take that amount that you can do of the activity that you enjoy, repeat it over a number of days, but you may need to take a day's break in between if you're new to a program, so you might try and do it every second day. Record for a week. I've done my 5 minutes or my 20 minutes 3, 4, 5 times this week. And then at the end of the week, reflect back. How did it go? Am I still comfortably doing that 12 minutes? Have I managed to do it at least 5 days, 4 to 5 days over a 7-day period? Well, that's a massive success at the end of your first week then. And when we think about increasing what you want to do, it's important to think about increasing the time element potentially, but also remember if you're doing it faster or harder or up a hill, when you don't normally go up a hill, these are all elements of increasing what you're doing. So when you learn to pace, you learn to understand timely bouts of exercise and adding to those, but equally knowing that you can increase the intensity of your exercise by making it a little harder in other ways, making it a little more complex, putting on a faster song to dance to, walking up a hill for a change. What I would also emphasize, I suppose, as someone who's just getting started out, is having an exercise buddy. That can be human or animal. Pets can be a great way of being buddies for exercise too, because they really will give you that look and say, "Oh, I want to get out and walk." So have a friend, have a pet, have somebody to be accountable to, because it's quite hard to always be accountable to ourselves, and particularly when you're living with the kind of brain fog and fatigue that can come with living with pain. I think that's really important. I just want to give great commendation to the person who's doing the gym, Pilates, mature movers. I suspect your body's telling you if these things are right for you, just looking at that question. So you're the one who knows whether this is right for you. If you've been managing well and not having severe flare-ups, then you're doing the right things for your body. I don't know if Martina or Nikki want to talk about how they got started and whether there are any key tips for someone who's just starting out.
I have horses, so and a dog, so I second you on the things. But I actually started cycling during lockdown. That's been my main way of moving, and it's finding something that you love that you will do. That's the most important thing. Dance is a good one as well.
And Martina?
Yeah, I started out in the pool, actually in a hydrotherapy pool. And not only did I have the exercise element, but I had a tribe and a group to support me, which I found was the most helpful thing, really. Because if any of us were having a bad day, the rest of us there, go on, you can do it, come on, we'll help you. And then there was the competitive element as well. Let's all admit that.
Never goes away.
Never goes away.
Yeah, Cormac, to kind of wrap that one up, I think.
Just very briefly, I'd love to hear more about Martina's course that she's gone back to do, going back to studying, because we've talked a lot about physical activity, and sure, that's great. I'm a big advocate of its importance in pain management, but also just doing stuff you love and doing stuff that you'd like to do with your life, independent of whether you have pain or not. What gave you the kind of drive, Martina, to go back and start studying? Was it must have been a really hard choice to make?
It was, and to start it off, I'd have to take you back to 2018. When I had joined the board of CPI, and I realized that I come from a totally different environment. I had my background in accounts and payroll. So I started studying to learn about community development and charity work and all the rest of it. And throughout COVID, I did a lot of courses online through adult education services. And then when I had finished all of them, guidance counsellor came up to me and was like, would you like to go on? You should really go on. You know, I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, actually, I really like the sociology element of it. I'm really into this now. And yeah, I went for it. And I will admit to being very, very skeptical and very afraid when I started off, going, am I doing the right thing? But like I said, sorry, that's my dog in the background if you can hear her. Lost my train of thought. Yeah, it was difficult, and I do have difficult days, but I love the subject. I really do. I enjoy it. I get along well with some of the lecturers. And I'm involved in a lot of research with UL as well as with Karen's project. And it was kind of through those research projects as well that guided me to where I wanted to go. And now in the back of my head, I'm saying, right, when I have this done, I want to do research into chronic pain. And that's keeping me going. You know, that some of this research that I have in mind isn't out there a lot yet. And this is what I'm going to do. And I started this whole journey to help people, and I'm going to continue it.
Sounds
really amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Finding stuff you love, that's the key.
Yeah.
If it's learning, great. If it's exercise or physical activity, great. If it's fishing, do what you do, but get out and enjoy it. I think that's hugely, hugely important. Great stuff, Martina.
I'm gonna make this the last question, and it's I think it's a challenging question actually, and it seems to be sort of stemmed around the role of identity with regards to pain. Obviously takes away aspects of our identity, but in many cases almost we hear occasions where it feels like it's become someone's identity almost as well. It's all consuming at times. So the wording of this question: do any of you encounter people who are totally resistant to trying anything that might help them with their pain? It's almost like they couldn't live without the pain. Who wants to take that one up?
I'm happy to open it, and I definitely want to hear from Nikki and Martina on this, and Andor. I think, look, as someone who's a health professional, it's maybe important to think about the lens that we might have about that question, because many health professionals may have been trained to have that view and say, you know, if I can't make them better, well, ultimately then it's just their own problem. They just don't want to help themselves. And I think now, as an educator of health professionals for the future, I think we would very much have a very flipped view on that old view that, you know, it was people's fault and they were just, you know, dragging their heels and not getting themselves better. I think the key thing is that we know there are multiple reasons why people continue to have pain, complexity of people's lives, biological factors, physical factors, social factors that are all intertwining in making it challenging to sometimes have the strength of will to say, I'm going to change what I'm doing and, you know, take on these really difficult behavior changes to help me get better. So there is no blame to anybody who's struggling to change their behaviors or support themselves with their pain management. We need to be better as professionals and as society to put those supports in place, would be my view.
Yeah, and
but
I
Nikki,
guess
help us out.
a quick message to finish on that perspective, Nikki.
Yeah, I think people who need absolute compassion when they're in that position, I think that I would say this idea of secondary gains, where people, you know, the secondary gains are never worth the primary losses. And you've got to remember that these people, their lives have been devastated, and having the support and the compassion and the help, all of that to move yourself into a forward movement is, again, it's complex, it's hard to access, and the timing has to be right. And it's hugely complex lives. Also, the the medications that people are on have to come into this. Opioids steal your giver. They stop your willpower. They stop you wanting to do anything. A lot of the drugs do that. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people. So you've got to put all those things into the mix and find out what helps people the most. And it's usually the smallest of changes. And you've got to have that time and that compassion to find out from that person where you can make those small movements. And it is possible. The smallest changes can have the biggest effects further down the line. So, just sit in that. For healthcare professionals, it's very hard. And I understand compassion fatigue, and I understand how frustrating it must be. But you've just got to remember that these people, their lives have been devastated.
Yeah, it is. It's a complex rebuild, but with that mutual understanding, and in this, persistent pain's an everybody problem, whether it affects you directly or indirectly. And the better we all understand it collectively, sing from the same hymn sheet, then it's a recipe for success, which, delighted to say yours and Martina's story is a prime example of. Okay, and a really good message of hope to finish on as well. I'm going to thank the panel for their time and commitment to the cause. As a wrap up, as we say, you're going to be able to watch this again on our YouTube channel and our website in the coming days. If you'd like to see a little bit more about what we do, you can head to our website, www.flippinpain.co.uk. If you've got any further queries or points to add, please email us at info@flippinpain.co.uk. And if tonight's event has motivated you towards next steps, I can heartily recommend the Flippin Pain formula on our website as a great resource to consolidate some of tonight's learning and make progress beyond that as well. You can also follow us at all the usual social channels as well. Now, just moving on to our final slides, tonight's event wouldn't have been possible without our collaboration with the brilliant Limerick Sports Partnership. Limerick Sports Partnership are on a mission to get Limerick active by empowering everyone in Limerick, young or old, able-bodied or with disabilities, to move, connect and thrive together. Now, if that vision is beginning to align with yours, do check out some of their stellar initiatives that they've got going on and how you can get involved too. And as we saw tonight, physical activity is just one piece of a much bigger jigsaw of self-management approaches that can support you to where you wish to be. I can heartily recommend you familiarise yourself also with the work being done by Chronic Pain Ireland, who are a driver of education, research, and both individualised and that peer support opportunities that were spoke about being so powerful this evening. And that's throughout the whole of Ireland. And this can be further complemented by the resources available at Joint Pain Ireland, who offer a combination of printed and downloadable resources, along with a video library of exercises to ease you into growing your relationship with movement, with physical activity, with a sense of confidence and safety, knowing that it's coming from a trusted source. All that said, we really hope you found tonight useful, informative, hopefully inspiring as well. If you have, or even if you haven't, I would really appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to complete our post-event questionnaire. The QR code for this is now on your screens. The link will be in the Q&A channel, and we'll also share the link to this question